Hello, everyone. I'm here at the Four Seasons. This is Wilson Morales from Black Women TV. We're ready to do interviews with Timothée Chalamet, Monica Barbaro, and Ed Norton for the film A Complete Unknown, which tells the story of the legendary Bob Dylan. Let's go. All right. Wilson Morales, Black Women TV. Tim, you're playing a legendary figure. At what point, when you started practicing singing the songs, did you say to yourself, I think I got it?
Never. Not even now. Not even now. I mean, this is one of the greatest artists of the '60s. Continues to be one of the great artists. So, hopefully, it felt like that to you. But I couldn't say that.
And then we feel, you're playing someone. People are going to be Googling, because they don't know, because there were so many women in his life.
Yeah.
What did you do in terms of research outside of what the script called for?
Gosh, well, I mean, I thought that it was so interesting because she is the one character in the movie that's not really well known. So I think that also plays in a big part of her and their relationship because she's really there. She's not there to gain anything. She's there out of kind of a purity of love to Bob, and it's like just trying to hold on the whole time, I mean, research-wise, Suze Rotolo, who Sylvie's based on, she wrote a memoir called A Freewheelin' Time that I read. There's also so many beautiful photos of them lounging around in their apartment, like in West Village in the 60s, and there's such a playful quality and spirit to their younger years, like when they were together, and so, the photos were definitely helpful, but also, you can't, facts and things, it doesn't help me as much as really being in the scenes and working with Timothée. I mean, I had Timothée there as Bob being the most brilliant actor and so in it and giving and amazing. And so he lifts everyone up because of the dedication and focus that he has. So it makes it a lot easier when you have a scene partner like that.
What surprised you, Tim, about playing Bob? I'm sure one was your first introduction, and then when you got this role, what didn't you know about him as you started to play him?
And great question. I was a friend of my father's growing up who was a big fan of Bob Dylan, one of these Dylanologists who would have striking black and white portrait of him on the wall that I always remembered. I didn't know much of his music or his life or his career or his work. As I got into the movie, I obviously did tons of research, but the first things I saw up front were these press conferences he gave in 1965 in San Francisco, where his attitude was confrontational in a sense, but it was very subtle. And I thought that was fascinating as someone in my life and career at that point was just starting to do media, and true to the nature of the time we're in, wasn't confrontational about it, and was sort of fascinated with how he carried himself. That was before I even got into the pounds of incredible music that he's put out.
Between the both of you, what's your favorite song of Dylan's?
Man, I couldn't tell you. It changes every day.
There's got to be one.
Every day.
You started working on those songs. Which is the one song you can say, if you had to play right now, you can sing?
Ooh, you could sing. I don't know. Buckets of Rain for me is the first song that I heard of his. So that I love Hurricane, and I also love Ballad of a Thin Man. I don't know. I mean, there's so many Dylan songs, but right now those are the ones I'm feeling. They stand out. But
today, I don't know if I could do it, but
yeah,
just today, and might change tomorrow, I would say Outlaw Blues.
Either way, great performances, great film. We'll talk down the road.
Thank you. Thank you
All
so
right.
much.
Yes.
Nice seeing you.
Yeah. Wilson Morales from Black Women TV. Here you are, playing a legendary figure. What went into the preparation of not only singing, but playing the guitar?
Well, I didn't do either when I was cast in this film, so it was just like from scratch. I had incredible coaches. I had a man by the name of Adam Tressler teaching me guitar, and another person, Cal Henry, teaching me like what notes on the guitar, and then I had Eric Vitro teaching trying to train my voice. It was a lot, but Joan sort of, she sang and played in some very specific kind of iconic ways. So it was just about trying to tap into the specificity of her so that there be some believability, some recognizability for people out there who are fans of her work.
Acting's one thing, you're learning your lines and stuff, but when you're doing singing, at what point did you say to yourself, I think I got this?
if I'm being completely honest with you, kind of never. This was an experience for me of putting aside fears and just doing the thing on the day. I think ultimately that is maybe what courage is being afraid and doing it anyway. But I think in terms of having ownership over it, I'm a person who's always, I still watch it and find things that I wish I did differently. And I'm really proud of the work, but I'm also just a person who's kind of never finished.
What did you learn about her that was different from what the script had and what you initially read about her? Was there anything that new you got?
Well, the interesting thing about her is that she's very open about her past. She's written multiple memoirs, she's been in documentaries. She's very honest about herself. And so it was really nice to feel like I wasn't being let out or being shut out of any part of her life. And then there were things in the script that didn't necessarily align. Like during this period in her life, she didn't drink. And so I was like, Jim, she didn't drink. She's drinking in this scene. And Jim was really receptive to all of that. And everyone, Boyd, Ed, Timmy, everyone was, and Elle, everyone was an advocate for their person. And just, because we had done so much research and wanted to honor them completely. And, Jim always told us, we're not playing biographies, but at the same time, he was open to what we had to contribute in terms of, what we had come to know about everyone we were portraying.
You're working along with Timothée, and what did you guys do to establish a chemistry so that we, the audience, can see how these two characters met and got to know each other before things went differently?
I think there again, we had so much individual research. I think we sort of trusted what came out of us being fully embodied versions of these people, and like we just sort of trusted what happened when we came together in the scene. It wasn't we weren't trying to develop some sort of like chemistry behind closed doors that then we'd show in the scene. It was these people meet each other in the movie, and so we got to meet each other on this film and meet through music. Our first meeting was a music rehearsal, and James Mangold is such a brilliant director. He had our scenes where we're sort of at odds earlier in the film, and then the scenes where we're more intimate. That like the blown in the wind scene in his apartment, that was the last scene I filmed in the movie. And so it sort of allowed for a natural progression of like a coming together, and that allowed those pieces to have, I think, that sort of intimacy and chemistry that you see. But yeah, I think it was just sort of trusting our own process, and then a lot of trust in the scenes and receiving what each other was giving.
Congrats on your performance. Congrats on the film.
Thank you.
Take
Thanks
care.
so much. Nice meeting you.
Wilson Morales from Black Women TV. Here you are playing Pete. How much research did you do outside of the script and maybe what you read initially of who he is?
It's an amazing thing to research a person in 2024, because 20 years ago, like I'd have had to go to the Museum of Film and Television to see his old folk shows from New Jersey Public, television. And today, like all 37 episodes are on YouTube. You know what I mean? It's the speed and the depth that with which you can access a person today is extraordinary. And so in his case, it was a gold mine that was readily available. But there's also great books about him. He wrote substantially himself, and there's some great books about him. And probably the most precious thing for me is like Joan Baez is still alive, and she was willing to talk to me about him, and Peter Yarrow from Peter, Paul and Mary, and people like Bernice Reagan from and Toshi Reagan, her daughter, like that. People who knew the Seegers as well as his own daughters were willing to talk to me, and so that's a real gift.
And how much of a fan were you of the music of that time? You know, you can say you've heard of it, but were you a fan of it?
No, I was very Dylan's early years in New York, and those records were a huge part of my personal artistic mythology. When I moved to New York in my early 20s, I was highly conscious of the period that this film deals with, and in a way, it was almost a problem for me because I had my hesitations. Like it was too totemic for me almost. It was, and I had concerns about the idea of recreating it and those people. And Jim Mangold, our director and writer, was so wise and a great therapist, I think, for all of us in helping dispense the burden of that kind of feeling of responsibility, or because his point was like we're not making a life story and we're not making a documentary. Let's get down into the juicy dynamics of the interactions that were underneath these collisions of people, and that made it more universal somehow to me. It started to become more of a fable almost than a documentary, and that helped me a lot.
We're getting 3 stories here, 3 individuals. Obviously, Bob Dylan, Joan Baez, and Pete Seeger, and a little bit of Woody. You know, when this is over, for those who don't know these individuals, especially the young ones today, what do you want them to get out of Pete Seeger, even though this is a glimpse of his life?
You know, it's a good. Timothy and I talked about this. Like, there's obviously those people for whom, you know, sort of the music historians, like this moment of the break between folk and rock. It has a kind of there's a cultural legacy to it, and I like the way this unpacks what's under it. But more fundamentally, I think there was a very fertile moment taking place where for a little while their music and the social movements of the time were intensively intertwined with each other, and the collisions of these many people, this group of people who produced that emergent moment, are really interesting people. And I think if people who haven't really immersed themselves in that music and these lives are drawn into it, then I think that's a great thing. Like I think in some measure contributing to reactivating people's interest in that, and maybe even in the idea of artists connected to cause, it would be nice if people, if we re-injected some enthusiasm for that, you know.
Congrats on the performance.
Thank you.
Congrats on the film. Let's see how far it goes. Hopefully it goes enough that people will always remember these things.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yes.